All right.
Sweet. Yeah, so like I said, I think at first I'll post it to it's definitely gonna go to the same website underneath a different header. And then I trying to remember it's pretty easy to set up a feed on iTunes. It just takes
Okay.
a little bit of time. So
Sure.
right now I'll just keep posting it under Drop the Dice and then I guess I'll have to figure out there's just I have to do all this like back end work, but it's more tedious than anything. It shouldn't be too bad.
Um,
And then, but like I said, the big thing is we need to figure out what we're going to call it. I don't know. We have to go back.
it is a pretty memorable line. May not be the most memorable. I mean, you could always just go with Jack. Jack.
Sure, sure. I don't know if that has the same sort of
Oh.
depth, maybe,
Oh.
and
Okay. I see.
hidden meanings as mine does. But
What
I guess
about
if we're just spitballing, then that works too.
right? Right. Okay. What about uh, you all, everybody? You all, everybody?
I feel like that's actually probably pretty good, but that's probably
Right.
going to be the name of one of our episodes at one point.
Oh, this is why you don't let me pick the podcast names. I see.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you used to when you were doing the back end stuff, but
But it's tedious, and I know you like the tedious back end work.
on my days off, it's actually pretty fun at like 11 o'clock at night
the
to just like
back end work is never tedious.
I'll be here with like nice. I'll be here with like a six pack and just like listening to us, and I'll be like, "Oh, that was a really good time together." And I'll like text the group and be like, "Guys, this podcast is gonna be so good." What's up, everybody? This is Beds from www.dropthedice.com, and with me today is my trusty cohort, my East Coast correspondent, and my former head of audio engineering, Mr. Rico Wasman. What's going on, man?
Ready for something new. I'm excited.
All right. So we mentioned on the last podcast, which should be going up within a day or two here, that we're going to be branching out a little bit this year. And one of the things that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I used to write a piece about this on my old website, but it doesn't matter, is I love the show Lost. I think it's one of the best shows ever, and I've always wanted to like really dive deeper into it. And I think a podcast is a great way that we can do that. That we can talk to each other. I mean, the guys are more than welcome, but I don't. The only one I can think of is Alfie, who might want to come on at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe Bus just to laugh at us and tell us we're stupid.
But
as far as I know,
board games too, so we got
sure. As far as I know, the other guys don't care too much. But like I said, more than happy to welcome guests on to the podcast. But for now, it'll probably be just us two, kind of going back and forth. But real quick, like we do everything, we gotta start this off the right way. What do you got today?
I'm still pretty low on the liquor, so I've got a passion fruit liqueur.
Oh wow, still with passion fruit liqueur. So I am actually saving the rest of the screwball since it was such a hit at game night, and I've moved back to Kraken.
Nice. Okay, those are solid choices.
All right, so here we go. Rico's last night in the States. See, it's crazy, dude. Kraken's really smooth.
I'm ready for some drive shaft, man. Let's do this.
Is there? I wonder. Do we ever hear that full song?
I actually just looked it up on YouTube, and there is a 1:13 video of them performing that song live. I think it's really,
it's so good.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about Lost, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through each and every episode, season by season, and kind of dissect it. Probably be about an hour. I want to go pretty deep, but I don't want to go all over the place. Ideally, each you know how I do.
Is it like back end deep or?
Yeah. As deep as I go in the back end. So okay, fuck, this is gonna be over now, isn't it? So real quick digression. I was listening to this new podcast today called Ologies, and I've been wanting to listen to it for a while. Have you heard of this one?
No.
So it's a podcast, and I've heard of it before, and I've heard that it's really good. It's this girl, and she basically looks at different sciences. So the one I listened to today was on Egyptology.
Mm.
And then she's got one on eschatology, which is the science of the apocalypse. And she's got one on this and that and that. So it's called ologies, right? So the study of X.
Got it. She'll probably do a sister podcast on like phobias, all the different ones. That would be interesting.
Right. So, I mean, that's kind of like Sawbones. But
Okay.
so I was listening to her, and right off the bat, and I don't think we're bad podcasters, but right off the bat, I'm like, wow, this girl's pretty charming. And like she doesn't come across as like hyper intelligent and kind of like above you. Like she's very, very warm, and she's very like it's very easy to listen to her. Kind of the opposite of that chick from Serial.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Like she doesn't have that NPR thing. Like this is clearly like this girl's just trying to like. It sounds like she's your friend, and you guys are just having a cool conversation. Like maybe she lived in the dorm next to you, which is super, super cool vibe. And then like the people she interviewed were just as like down to earth, and like the person she interviewed was this like professor, like the head of arts and architecture at UCLA. She's like one of the world's foremost like historians of Egyptian sarcophaguses.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff, right? And just such a down to earth lady, and like, oh my god, like the interview was so smooth and so good, and I was like, wow, like this is all really eloquent. And I'm pretty sure on the last episode we constantly talk about one, how much of a power bottom Z-Man is. Two, if Chazzy No should go to the bathroom on air or not.
So
three, quite a bit about Bus's dong.
So let's just rescind the invitation for all the other guys to join this podcast because we're much higher brow, and let's just invite some quality guests, maybe Evangeline Lilly, perhaps, or Matthew Fox.
Are you kidding? If we could ever get to the point where like Matthew Fox and Evangeline Lilly want to come on the podcast, I would fucking die.
I don't know.
Your podcast doesn't have the explicit tag.
No, that's the only reason they would come.
Yeah, exactly. Nice, I get it. All right, so like I said, we're gonna go through every episode of the show, dissect it. Okay, so now why are we doing this? So
I've been asking myself that for a while.
Cool. So let's talk about first your own kind of broad thoughts on the show.
I'm not a virgin going into this podcast because I've seen up through season 4, but I have seen nothing of season 5. So
wow.
I am excited to start it over and take it all in fresh, knowing, what I know. It's sort of cemented its place into pop culture. I loved the first 4 seasons, so I'm excited to go through again and then like hit that season 5. I'm like really jazzed to get to that point.
That is insane. I did not know this because I know Alfie has seen it twice.
I didn't want to tell you because I actually thought it would be really fun to like go through season 5 with.
No, I think that's dope because I think especially if we're dissecting each episode by episode as we go, going into season 5, I think we'll have all this information that I didn't even have the times that I've seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, even as we revisit what we do, the more we talk about it, the more that's going to kind of be in our headspace, and like I think that'll be interesting. Crazy. I've actually seen the show 3 times.
Nice. So this is number 4. This
will be number 4 all the way through, and then I've seen a handful of episodes an extra handful of times.
Okay.
I've seen the pilot probably 6 times.
Yeah.
I've seen the series finale a handful of times. I've seen. And this is where I start to lose seasons. There's an episode where Desmond gets unstuck in time called The Constant, which is just one of the most brilliant pieces of television I've ever seen. And I've seen that a bunch of times. I've seen the season 3 finale, which is probably my favorite finale, so many times, which is where I come up with we have to go back. Also, I would probably tattoo on my arm somewhere "Not Penny's Boat."
Nice.
Like I just think that moment, that last 10 minutes of that season are so good. Yeah. And just that, dude, that up against the glass wall. Fuck. Okay, can't wait to get there. So that's our own thoughts on the show. Here's what I suppose to you though. I think when the show was on, it was a big deal Clearly. People were all over it, especially those first 2 seasons. It was something new. This was the beginning of television becoming serialized as well, where you can't just jump in. There's no way you start at season 3 and know exactly what's going on. And they don't really recap a whole lot. I mean, they kind of do, but not enough where you can understand the melange of shit that's just like brewing around the show.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself made it sort of inaccessible to people who wanted to jump in during the later seasons. And you kind of see this weird push and pull where they try to do standalone episodes, and they're not as successful as maybe some of the other ones. Now, even when the show began to falter, I still think it was probably a pretty big deal and at the forefront of people's heads when they talked about popular culture and TV that were on the air. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
I think that in recent years, the show has maybe not fallen out of favor, but fallen out of the people's heads, out of people's minds. I don't think that this show is brought up as a landmark of television as much as maybe it should be. Whereas something like The Wire or The Sopranos or I don't know, like any handful, like even like Frasier or Cheers, like these landmark shows, they still bring up when you talk about different moments in television history. And I think Lost did a lot, but no one I think brings it up anymore.
Okay, I have 2 thoughts on it. One, does it have anything to do with it not being prestige cable, like and the type of show that it is makes you almost want it to be a prestige, like we're sort of spoiled by the fact that we can get more than your TV 14 rating when we watch HBO, and I wouldn't say the quality of an HBO show, even production, is any better than what we got on Lost, but people like it to be adult in more than just like content, not
So
content.
I was thinking about that, and I think that in the end, that probably shouldn't matter.
I know that it shouldn't matter, and my second thought on it also shouldn't matter, but I think it does, whether people consciously or subconsciously recognize it. The second one being that the ending. So I've heard a refrain around Lost saying that, well, they never answered anything. And why was there a polar bear in episode 1? And I think that really dismisses what pilots do and how shows change from pilots. There are so many shows that people adore and love that the first season, sometimes the entirety of the first season, is different than what the show becomes to be.
Oh yeah, you look at Office, Parks and Rec, both
Exactly.
great examples of relatively lackluster first seasons.
Exactly. Or just in the pilot, something like The Good Place, where the characters very quickly change from who they were in that pilot, and
or New Girl, which I don't even watch, but Damon Wayans Jr. decides to leave after the pilot.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really unfortunate because Lost threw a lot of things out there for that pilot to see what would stick. It stuck, and then they're really able to mature that show and take it somewhere. And unfortunately, if you don't answer those questions as the show goes along, people can latch onto the thing that like is inconsequential. So The Wire is like grounded in realism, and you just have to wrap up a few things, and it doesn't really matter how satisfying it is, but it's wrapped up.
Got it. Which could be the case, but that's why I want to do this.
Okay.
What if I'm wrong? What if this isn't the second best TV show of all time? And this is me being open to discussion, open to dialogue with you and whoever else wants to come on. And hey, you guys out there, feel free to comment, because I think we've had total 5 comments in the history of our podcast. But another handful of you have emailed us, so go ahead and do that as well. I think that's what's super interesting, because there's plenty of films, there's plenty of board games, there's plenty of video games that I used to love and then realized they're not as good as I thought they were. Or they fill a niche, or they fill a part of nostalgia that doesn't mean they're great.
Yeah.
Like Machikoro.
Well, yeah.
So that's what I want to do. And then I kind of want to go in and out of like, well, if this is that great, why are people not talking about it anymore?
Okay.
And I think that you probably hit it on the head with people have this view of the ending. So real quick, before we get into the first episode, so today we're going to talk about the pilot, parts 1 and 2. One, they absolutely explained polar bears well before the ending.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you've seen the explanation for polar bears.
It's not a season 5.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's in season 4.
Okay.
Maybe season 3. It's they're in the fucking cages at one point, like for the polar bears. But
right.
That's beside the point. We'll get there in a couple.
I'm gonna be mad at you if it's in season 5. So great.
That'd be great. Aside from that, the thing with the ending, and this is good. This is actually that's weird because you haven't seen it, and that's kind of why I made the outline for the first episode this way.
Mm-hmm.
From the beginning, Abrams, Cuse, and Lindelof said that this show is about the characters.
Mm.
This show is about characters. This show is about these characters, and we're telling the story of these characters. Mm-hmm. We love these characters. We're going to tell their arcs. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
The other stuff is kind of on top of that. It's kind of interesting. It kind of does that. All of it's in service of these characters. So fuck you if you don't know why the foot had 3 feet or toes.
I'm telling you, I just, well, it
not fuck
you.
It
sounds a little belittling to say that. I think a lot of people don't like to be challenged in having to think critically about an ending. You know, like if the ending is ambiguous,
I totally agree that people wanted to be spoon-fed ideas. Yeah. But I mean, me and you, like, it goes to films too. Like, I like movies where at the end they don't answer everything, and I'm like, oh shit. So was he really a ghost, or was he did he actually come back to life, or blah, 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 whatever it is?
Right.
You know, Lost does that. Lost brings that in. And Lost never hid from the fact that the show was about the characters. Mm-hmm. You go into that finale knowing there's no way, no possible way they could answer every single mystery.
Yeah.
And what they did.
But are you just accepting it because as it got closer and closer and more things weren't revealed or answered, you just knew that was the inevitable?
This is literally the last show I watched live. I had TiVo by this point, but I made a point. I changed my availability at work so I could watch this live.
That's amazing.
I convinced Alicia to watch this with me, and she loved it. Also, maybe the last TV show that wasn't reality that she enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like not counting like comedies like Broad City and shit.
That's got to have some cultural relevance to it.
Dude, like Lost is amazing. At least I hope it is, and we're gonna go through it, and we're gonna find out. And I know I'm probably gonna be biased about most of this, but who knows? Maybe we'll come. There's plenty of episodes that I find lackluster.
I already like the show, but I feel like I need to be the yin to your yang here.
No, fuck that. Because we don't need that. What we need is honesty.
Okay.
And 2, like, dude, this is a great pilot. Like, there's no way you can deny that.
Oh, it is in, you know.
And I think that even people who don't like Lost agree that the pilot sets up this amazing show, and then where it goes from there, people are like, oh, but then the show sucks after that because it takes you down here. Where I'm like, oh, then the show is amazing after that because I just jerk off to it all the time. And there I go talking about coming in, and I'm never gonna be like that chick.
We know our place.
We know our place, and it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about the very first episode of Lost, but first we're gonna take a real quick break. Tommy Irvine, hit that sweet music. I'm gonna grab 2 beers.
Nice.
Be right back. So real quick, I asked the guy who made our intro music. Mm-hmm. I sent him that song I sent you, Life and Death. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, for whatever reason, that's how I want. I don't know. That's like my epitome of what I think of when I think of Lost.
Okay. Is he going to make something with that?
Okay, so I asked him to listen to it and try and make something in that vein. Yeah. For our intro.
Okay. That's awesome.
Again, try and separate this as much as we can from the main podcast.
Sure.
So he said, like, so it's funny, he just got promoted, which the guy deserves it more than anyone. So I was like, dude, like, I know you don't have a whole lot of free time, but please listen to this. If you make me something, just again, like 10 seconds, that's all I need. Mm-hmm. All right. I thought that intro was actually really good.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
Okay, so did you see what I meant from characters? So did you take notes on every character's first scene?
A lot of them were just on the beach.
That's fine. But were they doing anything specific?
I took notes.
Okay, so I want you to talk about their first shots, and then so I wanted to talk about the character's very first shot, and then kind of the intro that we get for that character in that episode.
Okay, I didn't take notes on all that.
That's fine. But for instance, Jack, his very first shot is in the woods.
With the dog.
Right. The intro we get for Jack, though, is that he's clearly a savior. Like, he's trying to help everybody.
Right.
Okay?
Except he does stand out. He does stand out of Charlie's way.
Then there's, like, Boone, who I don't remember what his very first shot is, but the intro we get for him is, he's trying really hard to save people almost to their detriment.
That is true. He's on the beach with Shannon right at the beginning. He's basically just like protecting her.
There you go. So yeah, that's what I mean. Because I had this idea, but I didn't have a chance to go watch that first part again.
Okay.
Cool. And then we might take another break, or we'll just pause it. I'll edit it out, and we'll talk about the mysteries real quick before we get into it.
Heroes aired 2 years after the start of Lost.
Okay.
And it's just interesting to think about the cultural impact of those two shows and how one has like really, really faded away.
So it's funny about Heroes. It's actually kind of good material, but it's fine. So it's funny about Heroes is
let me start it over. We can bring us back in and we can pick it up on Heroes. I think it's interesting.
All right, we're back, and we're going to start talking about the pilot of Lost, parts 1 and 2.
Can I say something about the cultural relevance that I thought was interesting as you were talking about it? I looked up quick when Hero started, and Hero started 2 years after the start of Lost. So Lost was 2004 and Heroes was 2006. It kind of interesting to you were worried about the cultural impact of or relevance of Lost, but Heroes is gone. I mean, it's laughable at this point. And I was reminded of Heroes in the pilot because the pilot of the plane is, I forget if he plays a coach or police. I think it's a police officer.
It's Greg Grunberg. He plays the police officer who can, I think, read minds.
Yeah, and he's got the famous line in the first season that it's "Save the cheerleader, save the world." So he's in both those shows, and it just made me chuckle.
So Heroes is interesting because when Heroes aired, that first season is actually really good. And people were saying this is the answer to Lost. At this point, people thought Lost was starting to lose its way because it was just launching all these mysteries and not solving them. Mm-hmm. Whereas Heroes was setting up plot points and resolving them relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. You know, you were figuring out certain things. You figured out who Sylar was. Sylar was pretty quickly.
Married to Walter.
Things were happening at a really breakneck pace, and it was awesome. And then, of course, you know, there's a lot of factors that went into that. I mean, the writer's strike really screwed up that second season, but when Heroes came back, it just completely floundered. It had no second season. The third season was laughable. I can't even remember if they did a fourth, but they did a revival series, and that was horrible too. Like, anything they tried to do to keep that show alive was bad, which leads me to believe, dude, the long game is the right game. Like, you can't just you essentially like motherfucker. The only thing that comes to mind is like you blew your wad that first season.
Hey, we're in it for the long run.
Yeah, you come back. You always come back to Seaman. I know.
What else excited you? Like, so seeing that pilot was that was a nice moment for me. I also like the credits when I saw the composer Michael Giacchino.
Oh yeah.
Who does all the Pixar movies, and I was like so stoked to see his name there again. And
did you not know that he's a J.J. Abrams guy?
I do, but like just seeing those names, right, like got me excited again to watch the show.
It's crazy because I mean, I'm going to sound like a Lost fanboy after this whole podcast, but the Lost soundtrack is amazing.
I believe that Michael Giacchino got his start making music for the Medal of Honor video game series.
That makes sense because that actually has amazing music.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm just
Dude, oh, by the way, guys out there, old Medal of Honor games, if you can find them somehow, are incredible pieces of art.
mhm,
Like when Steven Spielberg was kind of like helping to produce them, they were insanely good.
mhm. It's
Different than any
amazing.
kind of first person shooter. Wow, this is a digression. Okay, first episode, we're in the pilot. This is what we're gonna do. We're not gonna talk a whole lot about plot this episode. We're gonna go into characters and talk about the very first time we see them, so literally their first shot, and then kind of what we learned about that character throughout these 2 episodes. And then after that, we're gonna talk about what mysteries does this episode begin. For those of you who've never seen this show, if you want a 1 second description, a plane crashes, people get saved. We find out that we're on an island. We find a radio, and then at the end of the episode, we find this distress signal. That's kind of it, and we're introduced to a handful of characters.
Yep.
All right, you took more of the notes on here, so let's go with characters and their first shots. However you want to do it.
You list the characters, and I'll kind of tell you what they were doing.
Let's go with Jack. Might as well.
All right. So he's the first character. He's laying on the ground. Shot is overhead. Overhead. He wakes up. He's kind of disoriented, and as he's standing up, a white Labrador sort of runs past him, and he's like, "What?" And then he rounds the corner, and it looks like a peaceful beach, but then you can kind of hear some distress, and then as soon as he rounds the corner, you see the wreckage, and so
Right.
it goes from immediate confusion to something that looks nice, and then complete and utter chaos.
So real quick here, so by the way, guys, all of you out there, and I'll say this for the first couple of episodes, but at some point I'm just either going to put it on the website or something. Massive spoilers for the whole series.
Yeah, for me too. So fucker.
This is going to be a little hard because so the very first shot technically is his eyes opening.
It is. Yep.
The very last shot of the show are his eyes as well.
Are they closing?
And it doesn't matter.
Oh, to me it does.
Okay. So I like the way you described it. I like the way you described it because I haven't thought about that. Where it's almost like you do see like a peaceful beach first before the camera moves, and then you see the wreckage. And this is a glorious scene, by the way, for this age. What is this? This is 2001, 2002, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
This is an amazing scene for television. Like it looks great. Like that had to be a hard scene to shoot.
Yeah, the practical effects in this entire episode are mind.
And I do like when you said that he's confused at first, but right away, it's almost like the moment he sees trouble, he snaps into action, which is Jack. You realize that he clicks into that savior role, and immediately he's going from person to person to person. Boom, saved him. Boom, saved him. Boom, saved him. And to him, and you see this as the show goes on, it's almost like a checklist. It's almost like he doesn't care about that person as much as he cares that, okay, I saved another one, and I saved another one, and another one. Like,
I think the character of Boone, and we'll talk about him, who does more harm than he does good, even though he is trying. He does make a quip to Jack at some point, and he's like, he just says something like, "Oh wow, nice job," and he's commenting on the fact that how Jack was able to just come in and save everybody, and he didn't do anything. So
yeah, and you see Jack move through too. Like the guy's good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think the next person we see is Charlie.
Okay.
Charlie is wandering in front of a still turning engine that's on the beach right there, and he's in a daze, and he's just kind of walking forward. And so I have seen the show before. I know that Charlie is a drug addict, and my first thought was like, oh, is he already coming down, or is he in a haze, of a drug stupor? I don't think either of those are the case. I think that he is just dazed, but he's kind of walking around in front of the engine.
That's pretty interesting. And I was trying to think about what Charlie was doing. And of course, through the rest of this episode, we do find out that he had stashed some drugs in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
He's clearly going through withdrawals at some point. And we find out that he's in a band called Drive Shaft.
Drive Shaft. You all, everybody.
They have a very, very popular song that we will sing countless times throughout this podcast because it's just fabulous. At one point, we should play 10 seconds of that YouTube clip over and over again so that we don't get sued.
It's got very deep lyrics.
You own it.
My favorite part is he keeps telling people, he's like, you don't know this, and then he just keeps singing the same line over again, like that's gonna do it for him. He's like, no, okay. Yeah. It's you all, everybody.
It's that definition. It's that like definitive. I'm gonna explain something to you, and then you don't understand, so I'm gonna say it louder.
Yeah, that's right.
And Charlie, we realize is I don't know. He's not really like aloof, but he's kind of a good guy. Not a good guy, but he's definitely self-serving. But there's nothing malicious about him.
No, but he has some self-esteem issues, perhaps. When he's talking about Drive Shaft, he does say that he's like, "Oh, you don't know that song? I did the backing vocals on that song." And so when he sings it, it's not even him singing it; like he's just doing the backup vocals.
That's a good point. And then like that'll come back is he constantly is striving to be kind of this part of like this greater good or part of something, anything that matters. And that's definitely his character arc that we'll see. All right, so that's Charlie. Who next?
I think we see Jin, who it surprised me to see Jin because Jin was looking for Walt. Like right there on the beach, first scene, he says the name Walt.
Okay. Jin?
Pretty sure, yeah.
You mean Michael?
No.
Daniel Day Kim was looking for Walt.
He says Walt.
All right.
I took a note of it, and like it surprised me too. I was like, why did he say Walt? Because he pretends, you know what I mean? He like only knows Korean for the first season or whatever.
Well, he's the one that only knows Korean. Sun knows Korean. Sun knows English. So let's talk about Jin and Sun. What's Sun doing as well?
I didn't see Sun. I think she's on the beach, but quickly.
Right. You might be right. I don't think we see her until her and Jin are doing something together later.
Exactly. He's being to her.
So I think these two are probably the most interconnected characters in terms of their storyline, and how they progress throughout the show. I think it's even in this first season. It might be next season. At one point, Jin gets separated, and it feels really disjointed. I mean, Sun's constantly kind of asking, "Where's Sun?" or "Where's Jin? Where's Jin?" There's a really cool moment that I've always loved in the part 2 of the pilot where Michael comes along looking for the dog, and Sun is trying to speak to him in Korean, and Jin kind of yells at her, and she buttons this, like, not even like this very top button of her cardigan.
The one that doesn't do anything.
Yeah. And it's such it's such a defining moment for their relationship where you kind of really understand like kind of their dynamic, which is interesting because as the thing goes on, you see maybe she actually had more of the power at some point. Or, I mean, she's definitely more privileged, if anything. I've always liked that. You find out right away in that Jin absolutely is a good guy and a fisherman.
Sure.
I mean, in the second part of the pilot, he's caught a bunch of fish, and he's filleted it and done whatever, and he's trying to offer it to different people.
Yeah, he made a little bento bowl.
And I love, we'll get to Hurley, but I love Hurley saying, like, bro, I'm huge and starving, but I'm not that hungry yet. And I love Jin, and they stick to it for a while where, like, they only speak Korean, which I remember at the time thinking was so cool that they're so dedicated to this. Like, their whole first episode together, I believe, is all in Korean. And I remember being blown away that on a freaking, like ABC, there was an episode of TV that was just all in a foreign language.
Yeah, absolutely. $100 million pilot.
Yeah. And then then Jin goes, there's a cool moment with Jin and Claire where she finally takes the fish and her baby starts moving and she grabs Jin's hand and you see that, like,
he's super uncomfortable.
Right. Like, but you kind of like, he appeared to be kind of like this rock hard guy, but like you realize, okay, there's way more to this guy than that. Like, he touches the baby and he's surprised as well, and he's saying stuff in Korean, and it's just like a really cool moment, and I think the show does a great job at humanizing a lot of these characters really well. Where it's clear that there's more to him than that.
Sure.
This isn't just he's a man and these are typical values and I'm going to be a man, like there's stuff going on. So that's Jin and Sun, Charlie, Jack. Who else we got?
So next you see a couple people in pretty rapid succession. You see Claire, she's having contractions on the beach, and she's calling over for help. And as the camera pans, you see Locke, who's trying to stop somebody from I think getting sucked into the engine as well. So he's like pulling someone away from the immediate wreckage there, and it keeps panning over, and she's having contractions. And then Hurley gets involved, and Hurley is where Jack is there, and Jack calls over Hurley because Jack needs to go put out the next fire, and leaves Hurley in charge of sort of being with Claire and her contractions. And Hurley is definitely uncomfortable. And he later faints from seeing some blood, so you definitely know he's a pretty squeamish guy. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's those three that you see in like the span of about 10 seconds.
All right, so Claire, we kind of already talked about. I love that. These first couple of episodes are all about her baby, and that's definitely a very big part of the first season. I appreciate that the writers, once she has her baby, they really start to develop her character a lot more. And we see that Claire's more than just this girl who got pregnant.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good move. But it's smart that, that's a really good emotional buy-in. Like, okay, there's a pregnant girl. That's easy for a lot of people to associate with and understand, like, holy shit, what is she going to do on this deserted island?
Yeah.
That's an easy, association there. So I thought that was smart. Claire, arguably one of my least favorite characters.
Oh, that's interesting. I think she's definitely the most immediately compassionate of the group.
She's just super uninteresting to me later on.
Okay.
Have you see? This is crazy because I don't know where everything's at. I don't do you know what her whole deal is and who her father is?
I don't think I remember.
Okay. So we find out later on kind of a little bit more of her family history. And it's pretty interesting, but then I always felt that maybe that one was a little bit of a gimmick, but she's there. I do love her stuff with Charlie. I think that's really charming when we get to that.
Yeah.
Her baby ends up being a pretty big deal. But we'll get to Claire a little bit later. I don't hate her. She's just whatever.
Huh.
Locke. When at one point in the pilot, Locke is moving his toes in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
When is that?
It's after the wreckage. There's a couple scenes of him just sort of sitting and smiling and enjoying his time.
Which I believe we find out either in episode 2 or 3 is because he's paralyzed.
Right, until he crashed.
Yeah, and now he can walk again.
So you see it more than once, which, makes sense.
In this episode, we find he plays backgammon, which we'll get to in a second. Or he finds a backgammon board, kind of explains that to Walt, who is Michael's son. Kind of what backgammon is, and again, we'll get to that soon. And I think that it's interesting that even in episode 1, Locke's setting up the whole story, and he arguably is a catalyst more than Jack for what this story is going to become.
Yeah,
but
as much as he definitely is in the background of the pilot,
right? And having the foresight or hindsight that I have now, it's really cool to see how much he's setting up. All right, Hurley. Dude, Hurley's intro is so good. First episode, you realize this guy is the most lovable person on the island.
I actually think he's kind of an asshole.
What?
Yeah,
Dude, him passing out because of the blood is amazing.
Him passing out because of the blood is amazing, but he doesn't really want to help people. He isn't really accommodating to them. He's not gonna really take one for the team. And I say that as he did help out Claire, and he did, you know, pass out, helping somebody through surgery. But I don't know. Like he's got a couple of remarks that come off as like pretty grating. I think.
Like what?
Well, there's the one to Jin where he wouldn't take the fish. He didn't say no, thank you, but was like, bro, like, I'm a fat guy and I'm nowhere near this hungry. And I was like, that's unnecessary. Someone's trying to be nice to you.
But he wasn't rude to Jin.
I thought it was a little rude.
All right.
We'll see. We'll see if it holds up.
Okay, so that's. Do we have something for Michael?
I don't think that we see Michael until after the wreckage. And I think in the first scene you have with Michael, Walt is trying to go find
The dog.
Vincent. He has a name. God.
Yeah, Vincent.
And the feeling that I got from that is, so one is a protective father, but two, it's a protective Black father who's like really worried about his son going off on his own, because he's scared for his kid. Like that's the feeling that I got about it, because he definitely distances himself from the rest of the group, and that was the emotion that I got from it. You know, a kind of a lifetime of trying to protect his kid and raise him in an unforgiving and unaccommodating world.
That's interesting, because now I think that means a lot more than it did then.
Okay, it could be. I definitely could be projecting,
not that like
circumstances onto it.
Not that the plight of African Americans has been less, and like in the 80s and 90s was nothing. But I think that looking back on it, maybe our awareness of it is higher now. There's a great point about him distancing himself from the rest of the group.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very subtle, but it's clear that he's kind of like, no, Vince, you stay here, Like, don't deal with strangers. And
even the conversation that they have about finding Vincent, it doesn't happen on the beach. And a majority of the conversations that do happen between the other characters happen on the beach. Even Jin and Sun, who are removed from the group, they're still on the beach, maybe in their own spot. But Michael and Walt do it under cover of the trees. They like physically leave the beach to have this conversation.
That's really interesting. I'm going to argue, just so that we finish it here, that all these things that we talk about were decisions made by the directors and the writers.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Let's go ahead and take that out of it, because otherwise, stuff we're talking about is going to be moot.
Okay.
Right? So we can assume that things that happen that we see, we're going to go ahead and say that was probably done on purpose.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Michael and Walt, Sawyer.
I think we see Kate next, and that is when Jack is trying to sew himself up by himself. And, he's the hero, so he will do it himself. But in comes Kate, and she can save the day, and she sews him up.
This is a good scene. So sick.
It's pretty great.
I used to quote Jack's speech here about the nerves a lot.
Can you do it?
I can't now. But I used to know it a lot better. But I just thought this whole moment was great. Jack, the way he looks up at her and he's like holding the needle, and like so much of this, I have it in my head, like just ingrained. And Kate's like reluctance. I think Evangeline Lilly is actually freaking like batting for the fences throughout these first couple episodes.
I think she is.
I think she's doing amazing work. Whereas I think Jack in season 3 and season 4 really deserved an Emmy.
Mm-hmm.
I think here she's doing great work,
mm-hmm.
because as we find out at the end, she's the one in handcuffs.
Well, she's really the first character in the entire show that has to deal with her backstory. And it's immediate there, right? Like you...
I think it is her... I think episode 2 might be her flashback, but I forgot. I haven't seen it in a second, so...
No, it is, but you see her in handcuffs in the pilot, and
Oh
she
yeah,
see
yeah.
you see the handcuffs on the island, and then I thought to myself, "Oh, okay, I know this is Kate coming up. I wonder how much time goes by where people might get to like her, where we're left wondering who was the person wearing the handcuffs on the plane." But no, they actually cut to it very quickly. Um, and so she has to deal with that and bring that to the island, the first person with this reveal of who she may have been before she got to the island. So I would agree with you, and I think that that's also because she's given more to do in that standpoint. I guess Charlie brings drugs to the equation, but that's just not quite as interesting.
Um, that's like a really good point. I actually never thought about the fact that she's really the first person to deal with her history. As
Mhm.
much as Jack is arguably the main character of the whole show, if you really want to get down to it, him and Locke,
Yeah,
he's the very first like big flashback we see. We see a couple in part two, but
yeah.
he's the first main flashback we see. That's really cool. And she, yeah, see, I don't know, because then you get into like Hurley's kind of the heart of the show. But Kate, that's good, man. See, this is what I'm talking about. These are the kind of discussions, like looking at the show in a whole new light, like having been displaced by what, over a decade at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time I saw it was 2014, all the way through.
It's been a minute for me. Let's put it that way.
So that's Kate. So Kate also right away we realized, dude, one badass
Mm-hmm.
can take care of herself.
Yep.
Doesn't know how to use a gun, but I think she's messing around.
Um,
I don't know about that. I feel like she knew how to take apart that gun.
yeah, she's definitely fearless as well. You know, she sees the monster and then immediately is like, "Well, we got to go back."
Yeah. All right.
And
Who's next? We still have Sawyer, Saeed.
Sawyer is you don't see him until he's smoking on some wreckage on the beach. I don't know if it was actually really
And then I
being
think his
written.
first actual like scene is him fighting with Saeed. Did you see
Exactly.
Saeed at all before that?
No, not really.
Um, it's a great intro because I'm pretty sure those two become friends at some point, like pretty
Hmm.
close friends. Sawyer, great. Like you get this, like he's a Southern dude who's kind of racist. He's like, I absolutely believed Saeed when he was like, "You were the one in handcuffs. You were the one in handcuffs." For that
Yeah,
split second
exactly.
before you realize it was Kate.
Yeah, they set the drama up and then they were like, "No, it was Kate."
But it made so much sense, right?
It did.
And we do find out that Sawyer is definitely like a criminal at some point.
I felt like the humor really didn't hold up. I think Sawyer said something like, "I've bagged chicks way hotter than you," to the extent when he was talking to Evangeline Lilly, and I was like, "Okay."
Nice.
One,
I
definitely not true, but also that's weird.
I kept thinking of like because in interviews he he started making like nicknames for everybody on the show,
Okay.
and then they kind of just were like, keep going with that. And so he would just like ad lib names, like, and I was just thinking about that the whole time watching, like, just calling like Hurley like fatty and like Lardo and like calling. I think he calls Kate hot cakes at some hot cakes or hot cheeks at some point, like,
That's amazing.
and like he just went with it, or he calls. But for Jack, it was always Doc,
Nice.
always Doc. I don't think it was anything else besides Doc. Um, So good though, man. Like Sawyer quickly became one of my favorites. At one point, he probably was my favorite character on the show, um, outside of Jack. Because I mean, I like Cyclops, so there's no way I can't like Jack.
There you go. I think that's all the characters.
Well, so Saeed though. Let's talk about.
Sorry, hold on. I think that's all the characters.
What about Saeed? We gotta talk about Saeed.
Yeah, I don't think you see him until he's fighting Sawyer.
But him in this episode again, all these people seem like they're really good people. Except for Sawyer, maybe, you know.
Well, so he gets in the fight and then he agrees to go fix the radio.
But
Leaves.
he's clearly very respectful.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
He has a
very
he has a great exchange about fighting in the Gulf War
with
and
Hurley.
with Hurley and how
Yeah,
he's like, "Oh, I had a buddy over there." And he was in the 17th division of the Air Force. What branch were you in? And he responds, the Republican Guard. and, and so Hurley just has like a deadpan look on his face. It's great.
Right? No, I love that. Yeah. And I remember watching that and not getting that joke the first time around. Okay, so that's kind of our intros to all the characters. The last thing that I want to talk about for this pilot is mysteries. So again, for the most part, Lost is about these characters. It's about these characters and their journey throughout the whole show, and we're going to focus on that quite a bit. And as much as I think that's true, and that's what the people wanted, it's ridiculous to say that Lost also isn't about these mysteries. And I think it's a secondary thing, and I think that it's fine that all these aren't going to be answered. But, dude, from pilot on, they're setting up amazing mysteries, and these are so intriguing. And I have a couple written down here. I think I got all of them. I mean, we get Kate like, oh, she's a prisoner. What did she do? Kind of mystery.
Okay.
You have a lot of like character stuff where like, oh, Charlie was a drug addict, and how's he going to deal with that? And
yeah, that's not a mystery.
We're going to find out pretty soon about Locke being paralyzed and why do his legs work, kind of shit. But in this very first episode, within the first couple shots, we see a pair of white shoes hanging on the tree, and the camera holds there. Oh. Do you know what those white shoes are?
No, I don't.
Those are the white shoes that Jack's dad is wearing in his coffin.
Wow. Okay.
And they're not on his feet when they find his body.
Okay.
So I thought that was really cool, and I didn't notice that the first time watching it because obviously I didn't. Why would I? But every time I've seen it through again, I've been like, damn, these people knew what they were doing from the start.
From the start. That is...
which again, leads me to believe that they knew from the start that what they were doing, that this show is about these characters.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, they lost their way, they didn't know how to finish it, and then they just threw it together. No. They had a clear idea of what was going to go on. Maybe a couple of steps along the way faltered, but they knew where they were going. They had a road path. The other mystery I wrote down was the monster. When we see, I forgot. Do we hear the monster in the woods first, or do we see the monster attack the pilot first?
They are. Oh, I actually don't know if I have an answer because it crops up like 3 times in the pilot.
Right. Okay. So I think the monster is in the woods, kind of shaking stuff around, and we hear like a sound.
Yeah.
And then I think we go see the pilot, and we find like
and it attacks the pilot.
Yeah, it attacks the pilot, but we still don't see it at this point. And this is the monster. This is going to be a big mystery for a lot of the show.
Yeah.
And I love, and kind of bleeds into the next one a little bit, but for the longest time we have no idea what this thing is. I remember at one point I think people thought it was Godzilla.
Nice.
Or like a dinosaur.
It certainly sounds like one.
And then when we realize what it really is, it's I don't know what's the word. Stalking. What's up?
I'm covering my ears with the headphones still in my ears, but I feel like I shouldn't know this yet.
Well, you don't know what the monster is?
I don't remember.
You okay? You've seen through season 4. You know what the monster is.
I know, but I want to re-experience the monster.
Really? You don't want me to tell you that it's
fine.
It's the black smoke.
Yeah. Okay.
You remember the black smoke, right?
These are like the other people, right? On the other side of the island?
No, it's just the black smoke.
I don't remember that.
Oh my god. This is going to be so good. Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, so the monster, we find out, is just this black smoke. And we find out a whole lot more about it, but I'll save you a little bit of that till we get there.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. But we do know that the sounds that it makes, or when you look at it, it's supposed to kind of represent your deepest fears when you see the actual monster, because it's kind of the embodiment of evil, which is going to go into, at one point people think it's a polar bear, because we see a polar bear that Sawyer happens to shoot with a pistol.
And
of course, everyone says right away, why the fuck is there a polar bear here? Which I love this part. I remember watching that pilot meeting like, hell yeah, why is there a polar bear there?
The only thing I don't like about the polar bear is that they didn't eat its meat. Like, they're on a deserted island with limited resources and food. Like, you definitely need to take the whole bear and cook it, you know?
Yeah.
Get some jerky for winter. I don't know. Really bugged me.
That's actually a good point. Why didn't they eat its meat?
I don't know.
But the polar bear is there. This introduces the polar bear, and they absolutely solve this at some point. So we'll get to that when we get to it. But I really enjoyed that mystery. I thought that was really cool. We find Danielle's transmission, who we don't know is Danielle yet. But at one point they climb up to the mountains to try and use this receiver, and they hear this transmission that essentially says, "Please come save me. It killed all of them. Please come help, come help." And we find out that this transmission has been looping for 16 years.
Yep. And we find out that Shannon did learn some French
when she was over in Paris. Oh, Shannon. We didn't talk about Shannon.
Yeah.
What was Shannon doing the first time?
They were on the beach just not doing anything. And you do see her, a pretty clear shot of her and Boone in business class as Charlie is running up the plane to get to the bathroom so that he can take his drugs, which I thought was a nice little touch.
So Shannon, who is not long for this world, she quickly is shown to be this kind of spoiled rich kid, kind of acting like a bitch and like just horrible person. And I think that again, the pilot does a good job of showing like she's capable of more than that.
Yeah.
You know, she gets eventually Boone, who's trying so hard to be a hero and failing. Shannon kind of gives in and is like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go fucking help because I finally realized that nobody's coming to save us. Yeah. And you realize like all these people have goodness in their heart. It's just it all seems to be kind of clouded by some past, which will probably come back to us at some point, given that
the whole crux.
One of the main themes of the show is redemption. So we hear Danielle's transmission. The last thing that I wrote down, which I had seen before, but in watching it this last time, I realized, wow, just how much he lays out the entire show.
Really?
Is when Locke is playing backgammon and explaining it to Walt.
Okay.
And talking about the oldest game in the world.
5,000 years old.
The fight, which in HMS Mesopotamia, they find backgammon board game pieces. There's a fight between light and dark. And both light and dark, if you know backgammon, you're trying to recruit pieces for yourself and to win.
Right.
That's the show.
There you go.
The whole show is a battle between light and dark. It is not the others and the survivors. It is not Jack and Locke. It is not this and that. It is this battle between light and dark. And it is the fact that all of us are capable of both. And where we choose to go kind of defines our lives. And that on this island, that battle rages in a very literal sense. Mm-hmm. It's so good. Because as we go on, that battle becomes much more literal, and we see these forces kind of begin to appear. Mm-hmm. And man, it's amazing.
Let me tell you what mystery I want solved. So the plane crashes, and Jack says that it hit an air pocket, and that's why the plane crashed. But I mean, come on, I need a better answer than this. This is an unresolved mystery. There has to be.
You don't know why the plane crashes?
No, I don't remember.
All right, we'll get to that.
Okay, good. That's my mystery.
I think we get to that in the second season.
Okay.
There's a very definite reason why the plane crashes.
All right, good.
Wow, this is going to be interesting.
I haven't seen the show since high school. Like, what are we
God, I
talking?
forget how much younger you are than me.
Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school.
I think I was a junior in college when I started watching it. Because I absolutely was out of college working when I finished it.
When it
I
was
was
still
in
going.
New York when it finished,
Well, it was on a long time, so.
for sure. Oh, this is gonna be great, Rico.
I
This is gonna be so
knew
good.
you were gonna like how much I forgot.
Yeah, because I don't know if you misled me, but you definitely, I feel like you kind of made it sound like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, fucking Lost, hell yeah.
I mean, that's kind of my MO, you know.
Sure, sure, sure. No, this will be good. So this was the very first episode. We'll figure out a title. Like I said, I really like We Have to Go Back. I actually don't know if I'm allowed to use it. I'm assuming so because we have no subscribers. So,
There you go. You are
um,
everybody. I'm just saying,
you everybody.
just as a backup, don't forget about it. I mean,
Nice,
who could? It's Drive Shaft.
right? So, what do you think, man? What else you got on the pilot? Anything else that we kind of missed that you want to like talk about? That anything that stood out to you that you forgot about?
I mean, Hawaii is really freaking green. Like that
Sure.
place is just it's such a beautiful location to shoot. Um, I know that's not quite what you wanted to hear, but it really stood out to me.
Yeah, but what about the show though?
um, no, I know that it's so carefully planned, and I think that like astounds me looking back years. And that's not the only show that has done that, but it does it very carefully.
Right.
And
And
it always
I'm
stays in the
excited.
end.
So I'm excited to see how things pay off again. To
Hmm.
see if they pay off even better now that we're kind of going over it with a comb.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited to see how bad are the missteps.
Yeah, even when I watched the show, some of the flashback scenes started to feel forced,
Sure.
and it
Well,
was like you're going down a
there's one
checklist
specific
at some
episode
point.
that's really bad, or that's widely considered really bad, which
Okay,
is the episode where Jack goes to Thailand to get his tattoos.
that sounds fun.
I'm looking forward to that because I've never liked that episode.
I'm excited.
And I'm wondering, like, oh man, like maybe after doing all this, we'll see the point. I'm assuming we're not, but that's also fine.
Do you know any shows after that do such extensive flashback episodes?
No, I'm trying to think. I feel like Lost is so special in that maybe True Detective season one, arguably.
But I almost think that is non-linear storytelling.
Yeah, it's probably that more than anything. I
Yeah.
think again, I think Lost is very unique in what it did. I think it was a product of its time. I think that it captured lightning in a bottle, and I think people have tried to do Lost again and have
Hmm.
failed.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting. I'm curious to see how the flashbacks hold up because on paper, I don't think they should work. I think they sound so gimmicky
Right.
and
I will
contrived.
say that every time I rewatched Lost, because I didn't like the flashbacks the first time through,
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what was happening on the island. That as I
Nice.
rewatch it, I enjoy the flashbacks more.
Okay. See, now I'm excited for that too. So
And
I'm
I'm
really
excited
excited
to
to
see
see
if
you
that
go.
holds up. But then again, I don't like any of Claire's flashbacks.
Okay.
Or at
Fourth
least I
time's a
didn't.
charm.
Or at least I didn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Fourth time down under, huh?
Oh yeah. Whew. All right, man. This is sick. I am super stoked to continue this journey with you. I cannot believe you hit all your lack of experience with the show for me. I think that's
I'm
a pretty.
doing fine.
I think that's pretty impressive.
Everybody.
Yeah, I know. And this is going to be great. Like I said, if the other guys want to come on from time to time, more than welcome. And I send out my invite to all of you because I'm pretty sure you're all listening, you fuckers.
Especially Matthew and Evangeline.
Yeah, Matthew Fox and Evangeline Lilly. If you guys want to come on, I welcome that, and you can kind of discuss your. Did Matthew Fox talk to me about that Thailand episode and what the idea was behind it? I would love it. Evangeline Lilly. I don't believe Jeremy Renner would have gone back to war and Hurt Locker and left you alone with the baby. Fuck that, because I wouldn't have left you. So there's that.
Well done. Okay, signing off.
All right. So this has been Drop the Dice. Bus, why don't you sign us out? All right. That was good.
Totally.
I like that.
I've seen the first season enough to remember everything that happens in the first season because I'm pretty sure I've seen it twice.
Okay.
It's after that everything gets fuzzy. I know, and like I just know the big things, and I don't remember any of the small things.
Oh, but like.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
Some of it you were like all over the place and like already explaining mysteries, and so like how do you see yourself unfolding it? Is it like, well, this mystery is at this current place, we're in episode 2 or 3 or wherever we happen to be, and we'll see what happens when we get there? Or like, are you going to be jumping to the reveals for all of them? I'm just curious.
Well, I kind of thought that I would just talk freely about the mysteries as we go, and
That's
not
fun.
really hold stuff back. Like I said, I'm trying to remember. Like what happens in season 5 specifically. There's like a lot. Like I won't tell you.
I know that like my trajectory as we got to season 4 started to kind of pitter patter, and I was like only loosely keeping up, and so I'm pretty sure I finished season 4, and I know I definitely didn't start season 5, but as the show goes on, I start to sort of have less experience.
Okay, so I think there's probably a bunch of stuff that you don't realize that happens. Like you don't know anything about the sideways stuff. Or season 5 is the last season. Dude, like there's a lot.
So you can do it one of two ways. You could do this podcast with John, and you both know the show, and you can talk about it, or you could take me through as somebody who doesn't know the show.
Well, no, we'll go with you because you're more reliable.
But if I weren't, or if John were more reliable.
No, like if you're not, like if I figure we should probably try and do this one, depending on how quickly I can get it editing. If we can get this out every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, probably pretty good.
You want to record it once a week, though?
I think we should. I think as a group, we should probably try and record once a week.
Okay.
Whether it's me and you, me, Zach and Mark, me, Zach and Staten, me, you, like as a group, Drop the Dice should be doing one podcast a week.
Okay.
And ideally, I should be trying to edit one podcast a week, especially if we're going to Gen Con this year.
Okay. If it starts to become too much and you need help with editing, let me know.
Yeah, man.
The last ones sound easier for doing our podcast. I can help out.
Sure, and I don't think there was a lot of fat there to trim.
No, that was pretty easy.
No, I think the only part is when I said let's take a break and then come back. I don't think that'd be good. There were the first couple ones here where it was just me, Zach, and Staten. I didn't edit anything really.
Wow, that's awesome.
Like I would find the moment where the cold open kind of sang, start there, and then find the moment where our rambling at the end has a good end.
Yep.
And end, and that was about it. And then if I would kind of like flip through, if I like sometimes we'd be talking, and I would be like in my head, I'd be like, this joke isn't gonna land, and then I would go through and find that and cut it out. But that was about it.
I would have loved to make a joke about Evangeline Lilly and her sewing skills and how the drapes definitely must match the curtains.
Why?
Because I like that, but I wasn't able to make it funny, so I didn't say it.
All right. Why would the drapes match the curtains?
I don't know. She was just a seamstress, and like when I was watching the pilot, that was the first thing that popped in my head.
Wait, she's a seamstress in real life?
No, she was sewing him up.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay. That's a rough
See?
day. That's a hard day.
That's why I didn't do it.
Fair enough. Damn, dude, I cannot believe you haven't seen the last season, let alone like don't remember too much about the show. I'm so excited for you to see what happens.
I'm excited
That's okay.
too.
Like, I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on it because I think this will probably be good. Hopefully, we'll get as we go. We'll get into a little bit like more of a maybe not a debate, but more of a discussion of like if I'm like, oh, I think this, and this, and you're like, do you really think that though?
Well, I think so too, because you're gonna have more context than I will, and I like to argue with you, and yeah,
Oh, that'd be good. Okay, I would say try and watch.
Yeah, how many episodes are we gonna do at a time?
Just one.
There's 122 episodes.
Okay. Like I said, I don't think all episodes will be an hour.
You don't want to do like 2 episodes at a time?
I don't know if we.
That's still 60 podcast episodes. That's a year if we do it every week.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
I think we do one episode at a time.
I want to watch Lost.
Feel free to watch ahead as much as you can. Just be ready to discuss the episode ahead.
Well, so I don't know if that kills the gimmick that I haven't seen all of Lost if I just go ahead and watch the whole thing.
That's funny that now you're excited to watch Lost. I really want to do one episode at a time. If you want, we can record 2 episodes at a time.
Oh, I see. That's
I'm
probably
fine
a
with
good
that.
idea. Okay,
you
let's shoot for that then.
We can do that. We can do 2 episodes at a time because that'll probably be like what 2 to 3 hours of recording.
Yeah,
and we could probably get each of those. Like again, we had a lot to. Well, we'll have a lot to set up probably this first season. But I think we could probably get these episodes to 45 minutes.
I think we can get them. Shoot, I don't see why we can't do a 30-minute episode per.
Yeah, probably. And then like season finales and season premieres, maybe a little bit more, or like as we go, like there's those episodes that are like, oh, whoa, a lot of shit got dumped on us that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think we could easily do that. I'm fine with that. Let's do that. So let's watch episodes 2 and 3 this next week, and we'll shoot for next Sunday or Monday.
Okay, works for me.
All right, sweet man.
Alrighty.
All right, man. And then I don't know. Should I start inviting the guys yet, or should I let them listen to this first?
I mean, let's keep it to you and me. Let's do the whole thing.
All right, sweet man.
All right, bye.
All right, dude. Love you, bud.
Love you.
Later, bro.